Tulius, Zozus, Crasus as the Seleucids, and myself commanding Epirus. So a bit of a Hellenistic rivalry there as well. You can see our builds here. It's the Battle of Gadara. Right away you can see that my opponent has invested a lot more in his cavalry than I have, and I have invested a lot more in my infantry than he has. So, I have a front line consisting of 4 hoplites, flanks consisting of 2 Thurio spears, 2 citizen cavalry, and sending them out to scout right away. And I have 4 of these very cheap slingers in the center, and 2 royal peltasts as well. So I can't see what my opponent has brought to the battle yet, but I will soon be able to. Quite like this map. Here some royal peltasts are coming into view. Some, I think these are perhaps Thurio swords. Here's some of his cavalry, median cavalry. I'm just going to withdraw from this engagement because I have no business going up against 3 median cavalry with 1 citizen cavalry. And here I can see the rest of his army. So he has up front 2 Thurio spears, thorax swords, royal peltasts, 2 Hellenic cataphracts hanging back there, and 2 Persian light archers that are trying to fire on these citizen cavalry, but they'll be able to withdraw before they can do any damage. Over here I'm just withdrawing and pushing up my Thurio spears, because they will be very nice against this median cavalry. So now it's just a matter of allowing my opponent to reveal himself so I can see how I'm going to approach this. Over here is fairly clear cut. I'm going to send in my citizen cavalry and then follow up with the Thurio spears. So he's going to have to withdraw here, which is going to enable me to take control of this ridge. Pretty important piece of terrain for controlling my opponent's flank here. And I'll be able to see both what's going on down here, and down here. So any flanking maneuvers coming around this way are much less likely to succeed if I'm able to take this ridge. So here I'm just kiting back for a little while, reorienting my lines. Ideally I want to skirmish a bit before the main engagement starts, since I have the skirmishing advantage. Now I'm going to focus fire on his Thurio spears with my slingers. Now these guys are very cheap, not the best slingers. They are the worst slingers. But only 20 missile damage, and I believe they have 5 accuracy. But they can do some damage if they are unopposed. So here I'm going to be able to chase my opponent down from the ridge, which is nice. Over here is going around with these thorax swords, and I'm sending my cavalry around to the side to see what we can see there. And here we go, Hellenic cataphracts. So before these guys are able to build up any momentum, and before these guys are able to charge, I'm going to send in these Thurio spears to kind of spook them a bit, throw some javelins. And I'm keeping firing on these Persian light archers. They're going down very quickly indeed. Here you can see 2 of the units. And here my opponent makes a slight micro mistake, which is very common. Leaving units together like this will make it so that you're hitting several units at once. So this makes my units very cost effective. Now, as you can see, I'm doing about the same. But I noticed that he only had 2 Persian light archers, so it's not really a big issue. It can be an issue that my opponent is able to follow my skirmishers here, and since my hoplites are in such a thin formation, this median cavalry could push through, but my opponent is not going to push through. So I'm going to send my Thurio spears in to attack his Hellenic cataphracts. Pull 1 unit out, put this unit in square, and throw javelins with this unit. Over here I'm going to try to catch the Hellenic cataphracts before they were able to charge, which I managed to do. He's getting into my slingers, but not really important. He is paying for it with his median cavalry, so not a really cost-effective engagement for my opponent there. I'm just leaving these guys there to threaten the flank and to box my opponent in a little bit. And here you can see 2 citizen cavalry doing okay against this Hellenic cataphract. This Hellenic cataphract is not doing too well at all. It's fighting these Thurio spears that are in square formation while being thrown javelins at by these units. Here he's pushing up the rest of his remaining archers.
Fire on the enemy!
But they are dying to these Thurio spears, throwing javelins at them. Now the Thurio spears only have 20 missile damage, but they do throw 120 javelins per volley, so against light units like these, they'll be able to kill them pretty quickly. So my opponent actually had 3 Persian light archers, but is losing them to Thurios and Slinger Fire here. So now I am establishing skirmishing superiority. Though my opponent still has a slight edge in the cavalry department, that edge is quickly being chopped down. His Hellenic cataphracts are almost gone. He's sending in some thorax swords, but a bit too late to save his cataphract general from being severely depleted. This unit of cataphracts is winning against my citizen cavalry, but it's a completely okay exchange, holding cataphracts there for that long with citizen cavalry. Here I'm firing with my slingers and with my Thurio spears and with my peltasts at his royal peltasts. I will get penalty on the damage of my fire here because I'm shooting uphill, and he will get a bonus going downhill, but still I want to weaken this unit before going in. And here my citizen cavalry are finally dying, but they killed 23 cataphracts, which isn't bad. It makes them almost cost effective, and you also have to factor in the amount of time they were able to tie down these cataphracts. It was a fairly significant amount of time. And same for these Thurio spears, they are really holding. So over here the engagement is starting. I'm sending in my hoplites against Thurio spears, sending in hoplites against thorax swords, and I'm sending in my hoplites against these royal peltasts, so I can keep shooting with my own royal peltasts. And my Thurio spears are now out of ammunition. I'm going to set them up for some rear charges with citizen cavalry here. And you can see these royal peltasts will start to drop very quickly because they have been taking fire from before. So here median cavalry going into my citizen cavalry. I'm going to send my Thurio spears in to support the cavalry fight. They got smashed a bit on the way, but this median cavalry should start dropping quickly as soon as I give attack orders here. But very nice charge there by my opponent. Was able to kill quite a few Thurio spears and withdraw without taking too many casualties. So I'm going to focus fire on him and send in my royal peltasts to do some damage to the median cavalry as well. And now they are dropping fairly quickly. Overall, not looking too hot for my opponent. I'm able to peel off these Thurio spears and send them in against the median cavalry over here. His royal peltasts are wavering, and the Thurio spears are holding up royal peltasts over here, and Thurio spears are holding out against Thurio spears, and over here as well. His thorax swords are doing okay against my hoplites, but it's just taking too long for him to be able to bring the rest of his units into support. My citizen cavalry are once again showing themselves to be very useful in stopping these 2 units of Hellenic cataphracts, which is going to allow me to keep pouring fire. So my opponent left the battle. It was a close victory for me, and I think this battle was interesting because it was a battle of quantity versus quality. We had a fairly similar infantry component. My opponent had 7 infantry units, 2 of them royal peltasts, 3 of them thorax swords, and 2 of them Thurio spears. So I had 2 royal peltasts, 4 hoplites, and the similarity stopped there because in addition to this I also had 5 additional infantry units. The main point sinks for my opponent were these guys. They were tied up by citizen cavalry and Thurio spears, and since these guys cost 1400, I can afford to lose 2 citizen cavalry for each of these cataphracts, and the cataphracts will take a lot of time when not charging to kill 2 citizen cavalry, so that enabled me to gain the advantage in the infantry and skirmishing department, and as you can see, I didn't kill too many of his Thuria spears or his thorax swords, and his thorax swords did okay against my hoplites here. But because of the sheer mass of numbers that I had, and that I was able to neutralize his cavalry and his skirmishers, then his infantry would kind of be dead in the water or dead on the field in very little time. So I think my opponent recognized that. Well played to my opponent, GG, and I'll see you again on